The coach-player relationship presents many challenges. Some of these challenges are becoming increasingly common, and today I will discuss these experiences and why I find them demotivating in our profession. But first, a quick look back at last week. I was with Slava Bielinski at the Future Tournament in Bol, Croatia, and he reached the semi-finals. Unfortunately, Slava had problems with his wrist and had to retire during the match. This meant that there was no point in playing the second tournament, and we had to leave early. Yuri Rodionov is playing challenger tournaments in Asia, this week in Seoul, Korea. He is accompanied by Alex Peyer, who will be attending tournaments more often in the future. The venue in Seoul also hosted the 1988 Olympic Games, so it has seen quite a few years of action. It wasn't an easy week for Yuri, who wasn't feeling particularly well and struggled through the first two rounds, winning more through fighting spirit than his tennis. However, Yuri suffered defeat in the quarterfinal against Imo. So now it's about making the most of next week. Back in Vienna, Sebastian Sorger was ready to start the hardcourt season. There's a new addition to Sebastian's coaching team. Hannes König recently traveled with Sebastian and enriches our team with his expertise. A new face brings fresh ideas, and as long as the team stays on the same path, this addition is helpful. A new face brings new approaches, but the issues that players have to deal with remain the same. And at the end of the day, it is always the player's responsibility. Some players are willing to take on this responsibility, while others are happy to hand it over. I have been coaching for more than 2 decades now and have had the privilege of coaching many players. Although, to be honest, it wasn't a privilege with all of them. Some characters were very difficult, and keeping these players on track required a lot of effort and energy. Ideally, you start out in a collaboration as a support person who observes and gets a picture of the player and perhaps provides 50% of the information. After a short time, you become the designated person who takes on more and more responsibility and gives instructions, perhaps providing 65% of the information. The next step is to be a coach with all the tasks and providing 80% of the information. This 80% should then be quite sufficient. As with all interpersonal relationships, it is better to keep the remaining 20% to yourself for the sake of peace. However, something else is increasingly happening at the start of working with a new player. You want to start as a supporting person and pass on 50% of what you see. But then, without really meaning to, you find yourself in the position of a coach. After that, it's all downhill with what you can convey or say to the player because the player simply can't handle the truth. So you start as a coach and then after a while end up as a support person who is only allowed to convey 20% of what you see because the player can't handle it otherwise. And this situation is, of course, very unsatisfactory for a coach. However, I think that this is no longer an exception these days. Over time, this forces you into a situation where you no longer feel comfortable as a coach. You want to help the player, and of course you see the issues that are important, but for whatever reason, it is very time-consuming and difficult to address these issues and then implement them. The larger the team surrounding the player, the more the direct work with the player disappears into the background and the bureaucratic effort, if you will, becomes greater and greater. The team discusses when to say something, when it is better to say nothing, and when there's something to say, how to communicate it. It's a delicate balancing act. Then plans are made, meetings are held, many discussions are held, and the most perfect environment possible is created. But one thing does not change. Can the player cope with the changing challenges and pressure situations in a match situation? This is just a small insight into the issues we face in our profession. We all like to claim that we always want to hear the truth, but we must each ask ourselves whether we are ready for this truth when we hear it about ourselves. Thank you for your attention and see you in the next video.